Okay, great. We are now on the second item of our special meeting. Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call for item 2?
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Way.
Here.
Councilmember Willie.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow.
Here.
Mayor Paul.
And I'm here. So the topic of our study session in the special meeting this evening is the recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission to approve funds in the amount of $92,900 for the fiscal year 2021 to 22 community funding grant program. And there's also an annual funding for the Cupertino Historical Society in the amount of $20,000 being placed under consideration as a line item in the budget. And finally, an approval of final funding amounts for the community funding program to be included in the recommended budget for our upcoming fiscal year. Madam City Manager, I'll hand it over to you now to determine who to introduce for the staff report. Oh, so Deb, did you want to introduce our staff report?
Sure, Mayor Paul, thank you so much. I am going to introduce Director Joanne McGreeny of the Parks and Rec Department to start the presentation.
Thanks,
Thank
Deb.
you
Welcome,
so much.
Jan.
And sorry, there's going to be another handoff here in a second to Rochelle Sander, the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. She'll be providing the PowerPoint presentation this evening. We'll be here for questions.
Okay, very good. Welcome, Rochelle. And my understanding from what the City Clerk's office told me earlier was that this is approximately a 6-minute presentation. Is that correct?
Okay, so good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. Tonight we'll be talking about the Community Funding Grant Program. Tonight's agenda includes background, evaluation process, eligibility, requested funding, Parks and Recreation Commission recommendation, Cupertino Historical Society, fiscal impact, and recommended action. The Community Funding Grant application period opened in January and closed on February 1st, 2021. The city received 17 applications for the fiscal year 21-22 Community Funding Grant Program application cycle. All applications were reviewed for completeness and provided to the Parks and Recreation Commission. The 17 applicants had the opportunity to attend the March 4th Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, provide additional information on their request, and answer any clarifying questions from the Commission. At the April 1st regular meeting, the Parks and Recreation Commission facilitated the evaluation process and provided a funding recommendation for City Council. After receiving public comment on the item, the commissioners each completed an evaluation form before providing their totals out of 100 for each application. Staff received the totals for each commissioner and compiled them into the evaluation totals form, which the commission used to discuss and determine their recommendation to City Council. After initial review of the 17 submitted applications, 7 applications fully met eligibility requirements and 10 applications were pending eligibility requiring further consideration by the commission. This is reflected in the community funding application summary. Final eligibility was determined by the commission during the evaluation process. The commission agreed to provide rankings for all organizations and deemed all eligible with the exception of 2. Ineligibility was based on the eligibility criteria, restrictions, and guidelines in the community funding grant policy. The commission evaluated 17 applications totaling $182,223 in requested funds. Additionally, Council has been provided a desk item that includes funded organizations through the Community Funding Grant Program for 5 years. The Commission carried a motion with 4 votes yes and 1 recusal to recommend to City Council funding for the following 10 organizations at a total of $92,900. These organizations are recommended to be funded at the full amount requested. The Commission considered the suggested funding range of $70,000 to $90,000 when providing their recommendation. The suggested funding range was included in the most recent version of the Community Funding Grant Policy, which was adopted by City Council at their December 1st, 2020 meeting. The Commission noted that following procedures from past years, it is anticipated that City Council will consider funding the Cupertino Historical Society as a separate line item within the Community Funding Program budget, in addition to the Commission's funding recommendation. The Cupertino Historical Society has been awarded funding through the Community Funding Grant Program since 2015. As a part of the fiscal year 1920 budget approval process at the June 18, 2019 City Council meeting, Council unanimously approved to designate an annual amount of $20,000 as a base or line item for the Cupertino Historical Society. These funds are to be designated in the Community Funding Grant Program budget as their own line item. Previously awarded funds to the Historical Society through the Community Funding Grant Program are as follows: $10,000 awarded in 2015, $15,000 awarded each year from 2016 to 2018, and $20,000 awarded in 2019 and 2020 as an individual budget line item. The Historical Society is required to submit a grant application each year outlining how they anticipate utilizing funds, as well as a financial report at the end of each fiscal year detailing how funds were used. At their December 1st, 2020 meeting, City Council determined further discussion of funding for the Historical Society was needed. If Council approves the Parks and Recreation Commission's recommended funding amount of $92,900, the total community funding program budget for fiscal year 21-22 would total $112,900, including $20,000 allocated to the Cupertino Historical Society. Final funding amounts for the community funding program will be included in the recommended budget for fiscal year 21-22. The recommended action for this item is to consider the recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission to approve funds in the amount of $92,900 for fiscal year 21-22 Community Funding Grant Program, and consider funding for the Cupertino Historical Society in the amount of $20,000. Determine and approve final funding amounts for the Community Funding Program to be included in the recommended budget for 21-22 and provide direction to staff. Staff and Carol Stanek, the chair of our Parks and Recreation Commission, are here to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rochelle. Excellent timing on your 6 minutes there. And I'll take this over to council, but I will note that our regular meeting does start at 6:45. And so what I would like to do is to be able to conclude this part, whether we need to continue it or whether we finish the study session item by 6:40. So I don't see any hands raised currently from council. What I can do is go straight to members of the public. I see 8 hands raised so far. And when I multiply 8 by 3, I get 24 minutes, and adding it to 11, that takes us to 6:35. And so those hands are increasing in number as I speak. They stand at 11. And so what I will do, I won't curtail the amount of public commentary, but I will ask people to be succinct. And if you hear something similar or even identical to what you're going to say, please keep in mind the recognition of time and trying to be efficient about our messaging. So our first hand is from Sita Lakshmi. I do have a request from members of the public to consolidate their time. And so I will honor that when the first person among that group is called. Please feel free to conduct that communication. And once the first person is done speaking, I will not be calling on any other hands that are not raised by that point. So at this point, now the first person is Niraj Mathur. And so Niraj, please unmute yourself and welcome.
Hi, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So at this point, actually, I'll hand it over to Jennifer and Sharon Blaine from Historical Society because we have a sequence here.
Okay, sounds good. I'll unmute Jennifer then.
And Sharon.
Actually, if you could begin with Sharon, that would be wonderful.
With Sharon Blaine, is that correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you, Mayor Paul.
You're welcome. Welcome, Sharon. And Sharon, you'll need to unmute yourself.
I did. Okay. Is it unmuted?
It is.
Great. My name is Sharon Blaine, and I'm president of the board of directors of the Cupertino Historical Society and Museum. And I'd like to give you a brief history of our organization and give you an idea of our mission, vision, and values. We were founded in 1966 by local citizens who realized their small town was changing from an agrarian community. And they wanted to research, collect, and preserve the history of Cupertino. And one of their goals was to have a place to display the artifacts and memorabilia. And when the Quinlan Center was planned, the city council decided that they would have this display space. And thus in 1990, the Cupertino Museum was opened. Slide, please. Our mission is to preserve and share Cupertino's past, strengthen the sense of community, and make Cupertino history available for all. We feel proud of our continuing efforts to provide educational experiences and research opportunities. Slide. As you can see, chief among our values as an organization are inclusivity, fiscal responsibility, and stewardship. We're welcoming to all and work with others in the Cupertino community. We pursue financial stability, and we are transparent, collaborative, and resourceful. Slide. As you can see from this slide, we're 80% self-funded, primarily through membership dues and donations. Our workforce is entirely volunteer, with the exception of our part-time executive director, Jennifer Furlong, who's our only paid staff member. As the only organization dedicated to preserving, archiving, documenting, and exhibiting the evolving history of Cupertino, our activities run throughout the year. Our exhibits and programs are not standalone events and do not fit the parameters of the community funding grant program. And this is why 2 years ago, the city council decided to fund the society as a line item in the Cupertino budget. And it's our hope to continue as a line item in the city's budget. And this will help us to maintain budgetary stability and predictability as we continue to serve the residents of Cupertino. We do appreciate your past support. And our brief presentation tonight includes remarks from our executive director about our events and programming. And this will be followed by our board member, Niraj Mathur, on upcoming plans and our future vision. Bill Kerr, our treasurer, is on hand to answer any questions you may have about our budget. And I'm also available to answer any questions you may have, if I can.
Time.
Thank you. And now,
Great, thanks very much. Let me get a sense of what everyone's collective pool time expectation is, because we pool time together, but a little bit is taken away from that. So Sharon, you went over a little bit on your 3 minutes. Jennifer and Niraj, do you have an estimate of how much more time this presentation will take?
We were shooting for 6 minutes.
Total? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay, slide, please. My name is Jennifer Furlong. I'm our executive director, as Sharon has mentioned. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, but rather than sit here on the slide full of text that kind of outlines our major activities and services, I'm going to ask for the next slide. I'm going to show you pictures of all of the fun things that we do. Chief among our activities are the exhibits that we put on in the Quinlan Center in that gallery space. We have about 1,000 square feet, and that is collection storage, gallery space, and a small, cramped, very scary, treacherous office. Next slide, please. We also preserve artifacts. You see me here transporting the Apple One that was on display in the exhibit that you saw previously. And you see our treasurer, Bill Kerr, is on top of the Kelly truck, one of our larger assets. Slide. We also are very proud of our newly, revived quarterly program that we've been able to continue during the pandemic. We've just gone virtual, and two of the talks that have happened in the past year are Wes Morse, who spoke on Pete Emig, and he actually authored a book with research that he completed with our collection, and David Mariani spoke in April about his self-published autobiography. Slide. We also are very proud of our super popular traveling trunk program, and here you see images of Gail Hugger and in a classroom doing the traveling trunk. We talked to the children about what life was like here in the Santa Clara Valley about 100 years ago. On the left, you'll see one of the cute cards. We're always so touched by all the cards and notes that we receive from the children. We have stacks and stacks, and we keep every one because we love them. Next slide. We also have open houses during city events and events in Memorial Park, offering extended hours and crafts. We have rotating story times. You see a little girl with a bunny craft that she made during a springtime open house that we had. We had Diwali craft making. Slide, please. We also do special craft and story time with the Quinlan Center Preschool. So if you can imagine about 20 kids in the tiny museum space doing crafts or having story time, it's absolute chaos, and it's the most wonderful thing in the world. We love it, and we our volunteers are always super eager to sign up to come.
Okay, Jennifer, I'm gonna have to cut you off at this point. That is the 6 minutes. Do you have an estimate on the remainder of the time needed? Because I won't be going over, of course, the totality of 3 people for 3 people pulled together.
Okay.
I can finish it off and
Yeah, we'll just advance the slides.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you finish it off, and then we'll have to move on to other members of the public as well.
If you can go to the next slide, please.
This one?
No, one further down. Actually, one more. All right, let me start from here. So, as Jennifer was talking about the variety of activities where the Cupertino Historical Society is involved in, one of the key part of the museum is that the existing artifacts which we have in the museum were loaned from international owners. So we are in process of returning those artifacts, working with international owners, as the collectors, as well as with the customs to return that. Majority of those artifacts are from Italy, so that's why that's additional effort. While that is happening, the exhibit team of the museum is really focusing on our next display, the next showcase of the museum, focused on more inclusive chronological history of Cupertino. So it's a very exciting display which is about to come here, where we are planning to use some of our permanent exhibits, specifically in the post-COVID era. Next slide, please. The other point which I would like to highlight, where we are focusing on and will continue to focus on, is the exploration of the race, immigration, the racial justice part within Cupertino and beyond. And that's where the particular racial justice reading group is very successful. We have been doing this reading group for almost every month or so on an average. So that will continue to happen. What we are also hoping in coming months, that we will welcome David Mariani, as Jennifer mentioned. We are also hoping to have our trips down the memory lane at Paul and Eddie's, the annual barbecue, and all the fun stuff with the international night as well. So looking forward to all that. Next slide, please. So at this point, I sincerely hope that the City Council must have appreciated the value which Historical Society is able to add and the difference the society is able to make So we are really looking to, and we ask for a permanent and predictable fund here on an ongoing basis. The other point which we really have a ask about to support the society at the same level as it is being done for the other municipalities. And finally, to continue the similar dialogue as we are having today to strengthen the relationship with the city and the historical society. So really looking forward to working with you all.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Our next two speakers are Shilendra Jain and Kiran Varshnaya. They're 2 out of 3 of a group as well. That includes Sitha Lakshmi, whose hand is raised. And so Shilendra, Kiran, and Sitha, I will go ahead and allow you to unmute. But I ask that you try to stay within an 8-minute time frame. You're pulling together 3 sets of 3 minutes. And so I'll give you a 1-minute warning when the 8 minutes is about to go up. But welcome and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. So let Kiran start first, probably. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mayor Darcy Paul, City Council members, City Manager, and the City staff, thank you for this opportunity. I want to give my inputs on the Cupertino Library Foundation proposal for funding request as part of the community grant funding program. Our proposal is entitled A Virtual Education Platform for Seniors. My name is Kiran Varshnaya. I am the president of Cupertino Library Foundation, and my comments do reflect that position. Next slide, please. So the model for CLF, which stands for Cupertino Library Foundation, is threefold. Partnerships. We work very closely with our partners in the community. Very importantly, the Senior Center, the Cupertino Library, of course, the Chamber of Commerce, and now also in this proposal with Parks and Rec Commission. We partner with other nonprofits and with our sponsors like the Forum Health Fund. And in this proposal, we will be partnering with the platform provider Get Set Up. And you'll hear more about that from my colleagues. Second, we want to bring sustained benefits to the community. And our proposal, this one will be addressing the digital divide experienced by seniors. On our side, internally, we have a highly qualified board. We are strong on project execution, and we are answerable to our sponsors. So we are quite used to getting dedicated sponsorship and funding and delivering on that. Next slide, please. To give you a flavor of what we have done in the last year, we have done the wellness series, the film series, which we do actually in partnership with the Senior Center for our seniors. We did the education series with the Chamber of Commerce. We did our summer science contest. We did the writing workshop. And then the next few bullet points, the laughter yoga sessions, the cybersecurity sessions, we did especially for our adult and senior community. We also did a virtual town hall with the city manager on COVID-19 vaccination earlier this year, and we did the questionnaire for the city council candidates as we do in every election year. Next slide, please. So interestingly, last year, we asked our city council candidates, and I just want to bring your attention to some of the remarks here, on their inputs on what they feel is the need of the senior community in Cupertino, and what they thought could be the role of library and therefore of CLF. The graph there on the right side just denotes that we are going to have a changeover in terms of our population mix. We are going to see a lowering of the blue curve, which is the below 19 age group, and you're going to see an increase of the age group above 65, and hence the need to address our community of seniors. So 3 comments here you see from 3 of the candidates, and in fact 2 are now city council members. Stephen Scharf, he was a candidate, he has also been a past mayor, talked about technology education for seniors. Katie Moore, our council member now, talked about facilitated discussions, Q&A sessions, thoughtful engagements on various subjects. Hang Wei, also a city council member, she talked about engagement for the seniors and to give them opportunities to learn new skills and new hobbies. And precisely our proposal addresses some of these needs that have been voiced by our candidates and also in the past by our council members and by our community in large. So we just have a Q&A. Next slide, please. So in summary, we have a proposal that will benefit hundreds of seniors directly in our community. In fact, it builds on the current city investment on the library expansion project, because we hope post-COVID, when it is possible, we will be able to do these courses in a large in-person setting in the new program room. So we are actually quite excited that we may be starting this on a virtual platform, but we will definitely bring it in the program room to allow more live engagement of a senior and adult community. If there are any questions at this time? Okay, I will hand over to our next speaker, Sita. Thank you.
Okay, and for time purposes, you have about 3.5 minutes left total.
Ooh, okay. Hi, my name is Sita Lakshmi. I'm again here as a Cupertino Library Foundation board member, and I've come to advocate for the adults 55 years and older in our community. Given the growing cost and shortage of independent and assisted living, we anticipate many seniors would choose to age in their own home for as long as possible. Lots of studies have shown that physical fitness and lifelong learning, as well as social interactions, have a huge impact on older adults' well-being. The pandemic has been particularly isolating and hard on seniors. It has amplified the need for virtual educational programs and opportunity to socialize from the comfort and safety of their home. Next slide, please. Our program, actually the previous slide. Our program is based on a virtual social learning platform from a San Francisco company called Get Set Up. You can think of it as a Netflix, only the sessions are live and interactive. There are classes for getting comfortable with your devices like tablets, smartphone, Alexa, and so on. And there are also classes to schedule and host Zoom meetings, how to do online banking, and more. There are sessions on health and wellness topics and hobbies and social hours. The catalog is ever growing, and all these sessions are taught by experienced older adults. Digital literacy is a valuable skill for seniors in their daily activities now and in the future. Our program helps older adults learn new skills, make new friends, increase socialization, and overcome loneliness and isolation. We believe participating in this program will help them stay mentally and physically fit. The program will also benefit those among us who are caregivers for their loved ones. I will pass the rest of the time to Shilendra, my colleague.
Thank you. You have about 1.5 minutes left of your consolidated time. Welcome.
Shilendra?
Shilendra, you'll need to unmute your mic.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak over here. My name is Shilendra Jain, and I'm a board member of Cupertino Library Foundation. To complement Kiran and Sita, I would like to cover categories of live classes offered on the Get Set Up platform and few examples of the related classes. Can we move to the next slide? Next one. Follow. Yeah. Keep on going, please. Till yeah, that's right. So next slide. So I'm going to cover the categories of the classes. Basically, as you can see, the categories of classes offered are very relevant to senior community in place. Basically, it covers aging in place classes to basic technology use, various popular communication tools, health and wellness, travel and entertainment classes, basically. So in addition to 300 classes, if there is a strong need in community, Get Set Up leadership is very much ready to develop custom courses, basically. Let me go quickly into the specific classes. If you go to the next slide. Okay. So aging in place, as you can see, this is very interesting, a very useful mix of classes, basically.
Please very briefly wrap up your presentation. That's the
So I think this is probably very clear that this is an area which is of interest to us. Let us go to the next slide. And health and wellness, as you can see, this is also very relevant, basically, means fitness classes, varieties of basic things which are needed for seniors, which is covered in this thing. Let us go to the next slide.
Okay, I'm going to close out your time now. Well, thank you very much, though. Okay. And I think we got a really good idea of CLF's contributions. Our next three speakers are Peggy Griffin, Jean Bedord, and Diana Argabright. Welcome, Peggy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes we can.
Good evening, council members and staff. If I overrun my time, Pam Hershey has volunteered to give me her time.
You'll need to keep it within 3 minutes, Peggy. Pam's hand is not raised.
Okay. The Snyder Hammond House, located at the end of Stevens Creek Boulevard on the west side of town, circled here, is past Foothill. Next slide. The first picture is the picture of the house in 2000 when the San Jose Catholic Diocese sold it to the Cupertino Historical Society for $1 to preserve it. The bottom picture is the current state of this house in 2021. Next slide, please. The Snyder Hammond House is on the Cupertino Historic Site as defined in the general plan. It's on the adopted bike transportation plan. It's on the rail corridor project. It's on page 113 of the 2019-2020 adopted CIP budget to provide connection from Stevens Creek Trail and vehicle access to the house. Next slide, please. From the CHS presentation, it is very clear that their priority is not to preserve and maintain this Cupertino historic site. Yet their application uses it as a reason they need $10,000 of the $20,000. If you scroll down to the bottom, it says how the funds will be used. Other collections, storage, and maintenance of Snyder Hammond property, wildfire prevention, liability insurance, pest control. And further down, they mention taxes. The taxes are $143. It is obvious, I think, I would request that the $10,000, if it be given for this, to be specifically only for that and not storage. Or maybe it's time to move this house to the jurisdiction of the city rather than the Historic Society, because it's not being maintained, even though funds are mentioned in the application. Thank you. I do believe in the Historic Society and they are doing a wonderful job, but not maintaining this house. Thank you.
Hello. Am I?
Welcome, Jean. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten, can you give me my slides, please? Could you make those full screen?
I can try, but it's been crashing my computer because I have so many slides, but I'll try.
Okay, if not, I'll deal with it as it is. Okay, in the interest of time, good evening, Mayor Paul and council members. My name is Jean Bedord and I am a resident of Cupertino. I'm here to talk about the value of city archives, which are the historical record for our city. They've been overlooked for much too long, given that Cupertino was incorporated in 1955, about the same time as our neighboring cities of Saratoga and Los Altos, which provide much more support to their historical societies. There are actually next slide. There are actually three components to the city archives. The first is our public library, which does an excellent job of curating books and magazines, and these are cataloged by paid staff. All of the other types of historical materials, the photos, the ephemeral materials, and historically relevant artifacts end up with the Historical Society. As you can guess, preservation and storage is a major issue. As our history deepens, the collection gets bigger. There's almost no storage at Quinlan Center, so the Society has to pay for a storage unit. And let's not forget there are significant city archives from city operations, again with paid staff. Next slide. Now let's look at funding. There is $233,790 in the city budget for additional library funding. No one questions this line item, or at least for the last 30 years that I've lived in the city. By comparison, the Cupertino Historical Society has had to literally beg to get funding each year, despite the fact that they've been in operation since 1966, over 50 years. It depends on volunteers to staff the Quinlan Center Museum rather than city employees. Oh, and yes, there are the historical houses which are both uninhabitable and require major renovation to bring up to code. Despite misinformation from other members of the public, the one-time lease payment of $120,000 from Lehigh has been fully eaten up by maintenance and insurance on the Snyder Hamilton House, which is another uninhabitable building and lacks good public access.
15 seconds.
Brush abatement is an ongoing expense. My ask of this council is to increase the funding for the Historical Society to a more equitable line of $50,000. Council members say they value our history, so give them the funding they need. You say
Thank you, Jean.
value volunteers, so give them the funding.
Our next speaker is Diana Argabright. There are 3 more remaining speakers that had their hands raised before the first speaker was completed. They are Bruce Parsons, Lisa Warren, and Orrin Mahoney. Upon Diana's conclusion of her comments, I will be asking for a motion from council to continue this to a point in our regularly scheduled meeting that starts in approximately 7 minutes to determine where we place it if we continue it to that meeting under postponements and orders of the day early on in the meeting. So welcome, Diana. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm the director of the UFRAT Museum of Art at De Anza College and also a longtime Cupertino resident. The UFRAT is Cupertino's only art museum. We traditionally present one-of-a-kind exhibitions, events, and programs that reflect the rich, diverse heritage of our area. Our Arts and Schools program joins professional artists and students of all ages in using art as a part of the community building process. The proposed funding is for exhibition-related expenses, events, and community outreach for next fiscal year. Plans include a fall in-person exhibition titled Common Ground. It will explore our shared humanity beyond borders or divisions. The winter exhibition will be aligned with the 2022 Silicon Valley Reads theme and books, and in the spring we'll present the De Anza Student Art Show. Events will include guest artist presentations and workshops, everything open to the public and free of charge. I'm excited to let you know we'll be able to have open hours every Saturday during exhibitions starting in the fall when the De Anza campus can be reopened. We are requesting $15,000 partly in light of the severe impacts of the pandemic on our revenue-generating Arts and Schools program. The museum is self-funded, and with the absence of in-person after-school art classes, camps, and a closed campus, revenue income dropped by almost 90%. Our summer program, as well as exhibitions, pivoted into the virtual space. Current online exhibitions include Sources of Solace and the 2021 De Anza Student Art Show. A Sources of Solace slideshow began the 2021 Silicon Valley Reads kickoff event, and we also began the museum's YouTube channel and produced 7 programs. I'd like to conclude with a note about Hope and Solace, a public poetry project we're doing in partnership with the Cupertino Poet Laureate program. The invitation was to write 1 line about hope, all languages welcome. We received contributions from many accomplished and budding poets from Cupertino to New York. A series of artful banners incorporating the poetic responses will be installed in about a week around the perimeter of De Anza College, facing a bit of Stevens Creek Boulevard and Stelling Road. We hope you enjoy the color and collective wisdom in our shared public space in Cupertino. Look for the June 11th issue of the Cupertino Courier for more about this collaborative project. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Great, thank you very much, Diana. I will bring this back to council at this time to entertain a motion. I'll set it forth. I would like to move that our city council continue this item potentially as early as our regularly scheduled agenda to be determined if that is the case under postponements and orders of the day as to where we place it on the agenda. May I please have a second for this motion?
Mayor Paul?
Yes, Councilmember Moore.
I was actually hoping that we could move it to our upcoming budget meeting instead and take care of the entire budget as one, rather than having it separated out. That's my preference.
Okay, very good. And I'll apprise the public of the fact that that meeting is taking place at 6 p.m. on Friday. That's this Friday, June 4th. And so if that's the pleasure of the council, I do see one other head nodded. I will go ahead and change my motion to continuing it to the date certain of June 4th at 6 p.m. And I will read off the remaining hands in the public hearing. I will call on those hands in this order: Bruce Parsons, Lisa Warren, and Orrin Mahoney if this motion does pass. May I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Vice Mayor Chow, you have your hand raised. Did you want to speak to this motion?
I think we should allow those three speakers to finish today, so we close the public hearing. And then, because I don't think we can ask them to come back on a third time.
Okay, let me modify this motion one more time then. And then hopefully the second accepts. Since these speakers are here, I think there is good sense to what the Vice Mayor states. Let me try to continue the public hearing portion of this to later this evening during our regularly scheduled meeting at a time specifically to be determined under postponements and orders of the day, with the remainder of the meeting at that time to be requested to be moved to June 4th at 6 p.m. Councilmember Moore, will you accept that as a second?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I don't see any other hands raised from council. Madam City Clerk, would you please take a roll call vote on that motion?
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, just one correction. The meeting is actually now starting at 6:15 on Friday.
Thank you for that correction, and I will correct my motion to so reflect. Councilmember Moore, will you accept that correction to the motion?
Yes.
Very good. Please conduct the roll call vote, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Wei?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we're closed out for the time being for our study session, and I noticed that the clock just hit 6:45, and so we will directly segue into our regularly scheduled council meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Today is June 1st, 2021. Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Wei?
Here.
Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Paul?
And I'm here. This evening, I am very pleased to present a suite of proclamations and a presentation. Thank you for bearing with me, my fellow council members and staff and members of the public. Normally, I would place 2 items under ceremonial matters and presentations, but I felt that these 3 items were a very good consolidation of items to consider together. The first item is a proclamation recognizing June as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ Pride Month. And we will be presenting the proclamation recognizing June as LGBTQ Pride Month. And I'll notice, I'll take note that our city clerk does have the proclamation up. Kirsten, I won't make you expand this because I understand that it does put some resource constraints on your computer. And we wouldn't want to lose our city clerk in the middle of the meeting. However, we do have a presentation from a highly esteemed former elected public official in our county, and that is from former Supervisor Ken Yeager, who served with, again, esteem and honor during his time in public office. Welcome, Ken, and thank you for being here today to speak to this proclamation.
Well, thank you, Mayor Paul. And I was in elected office for 26 years, and I must say you run a very tight ship as the person who's running the meeting here in Cupertino. But thank you very much, and I'll do this in 3 minutes, so you'll might excuse me if I talk fast. But first, thank you for recognizing the LGBTQ community in Cupertino. For you, it may not seem like a big act, but for a community like mine that has been ignored by city government, state government, for just decades, and we've had to go through so much, it really is, it feels welcomed to be able to be here and say a few words. I do want to talk about Queer Silicon Valley very briefly. This is a project that I've been working on for the last year or so. There really is almost no history that has been recorded of our community here, and this is our attempt to do it. And Kirsten, if you could just move on as we go fast. This is the website, and it just to give you an idea of some of the topics. We talk all about HIV/AIDS and what it did to our county here and the loss of so many thousands of people. And then we have these general categories, and then we have these 13 pages. So if you want to know anything about any LGBTQ organization that ever existed in Santa Clara County and still does, you can go there. LGBTQ plus in tech, particularly for Cupertino, very important to know the role of LGBTQ employees and the effect they had. Office of LGBTQ Affairs at the county, which I established when I was on the Board of Supervisors, the only one in the county that does that. Kirsten, next. And so a whole section on marriage equality, lesbian bookstore, anything about the Latinx community, the trans community, all the organizations, the healthcare that we provide, pride flags and proclamation, the fact that it took a long time to even get pride flags raised and proclamation. So thank you for the proclamation, Mayor. And gay pride, Kirsten, next. Then, bars and clubs, almost all which no longer exist, but certainly existed in Cupertino as well. Elected officials, the gay press, everything about our community center, and then really some of the horrific crimes that were done towards LGBTQ people, and a whole timeline, a 50-year timeline of everything that I could find that relating to our community. Next, please. And so we're doing a museum exhibit. It's so exciting. History San Jose collected all of this information. June 24th is the VIP and sponsors time, and the 25th for the general community, and then it opens that weekend. Next, please. I'm so pleased at all of the sponsors, and if I could make a pitch for any of the companies in Cupertino who might want to be a sponsor as well. Certainly this all began with a very good grant. And then Kirsten, just quickly through the other ones, we've got our officials, museum exhibit, and our representatives, the state senate and assembly, all of the San Jose City Council members. Why don't you go down to the very last one that we got and keep going. And then, so if you want to contact me, this is the information, but if you just want to go on to queersiliconvalley.org, that will get you to the website.
Thank you very much, Former Supervisor Yeager, and really appreciate all of your service to the community at large, to the LGBTQ community, and as very evident, you've kept very actively involved post your election year. So thank you very much for setting that kind of paradigmatic example for public service. And
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so we're on to the next item on our agenda tonight. The first time I was mayor in 2018, there was a proclamation recognizing June as Men's Health Month presented to me. And, as these things go, we get a lot of different proclamation requests. And I wanted to make sure that, our meetings ran efficiently, like I, do my best to do so this year as well. But I didn't take that up that year. But I wanted to be able to do a little bit more diligence into this, this particular request. And it turns out that it is, in fact, a federal initiative that started in the 1990s. And it was a bipartisan effort. It was promoted by Senator Bob Dole of Kansas, as well as President Clinton at the time. And so I would like to, in an effort to recognize this as Men's Health Month as well, place this proclamation up there and just to present some of the history behind it. So I really appreciate the continued request from this organization that's located in Washington, D.C. But now, without any further delay, I wanted to present Now, item number 3, which is a presentation.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I apologize to interrupt.
No worries, Kirsten.
Brittany Lee with Men's Health Week. Men's
Oh,
Health Month
right.
is actually
Of course.
to receive it.
Thank you very much. And Brittany, thank you for being here. I apologize for not recognizing the name because, of course, you had emailed me about this. Welcome to our community. And if you have a few words on Men's Health Month, please feel free to share them at this time. Welcome again.
Hi, thank you for having me. Just on behalf of the Men's Health Network, I wanted to say thank you for issuing this proclamation and supporting June as Men's Health Month because it is a very important issue. Like all of our studies, there's evidence of men being less proactive about their health and pursuing the help that they may need. And so really this month we're just trying to promote this. We're just trying to promote men pursuing these health initiatives.
Very good. And the health of the body politic starts with the individual people. And of course, this is everyone would agree, a very significant sector of the population. And so thank you, Brittany, for being here. It is very appreciated by our community. Item number 3 is a presentation from the Executive Director of Women's Silicon Valley. This is an anti-domestic violence advocacy organization. I very much appreciate Ruth Darling being here this evening. Welcome, Ruth. And as I had conveyed to her in our initial conversations, it's our community that's grateful for you to be here tonight to let us know about the very, very important work that your organization does, not just in raising awareness, but also providing resources for victims of domestic violence. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you so much, Mayor Paul. And what an honor it is to be here. And I really do appreciate your giving me the time to present to you tonight. I'm going to try and share my screen and let's all say a little prayer. Technology has not been kind to me, so I'm hoping that I'm about to see a turn of events.
We can see your presentation.
You can. Oh, how wonderful. Okay, and now, how about now? Can you see it now?
Now it's also visible, but it's not quite expanded to the entirety, but I think it's totally fine.
Is it? Okay. It takes up the whole screen at my side, but if you can read it.
I can actually share my screen if you'd like, Ruth.
However you'd like to do it. What would make sense?
I think this is fine, just for ease of the fact that you already have it up. I think.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right. So tally ho, as they say. Well, good evening, everyone. Mayor Paul and honorable council members. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and a great honor to be able to speak to you tonight and share some information with you about the work and mission of Women SV, Women of Silicon Valley. As Mayor Paul said, we're a domestic violence nonprofit based in Los Altos. I created this program back in 2011 with the help of the Los Altos Community Foundation. And our purpose was to empower survivors, train providers, and educate the community to break the cycle of covert abuse in intimate partner relationships so that every woman and child can exercise their fundamental human right to be free and safe in their own home. The partners of our survivors tend to be powerful, sophisticated abusers, doctors, lawyers, engineers, CEOs with a positive public image, which hides a very different dark side behind closed doors that typically only their immediate family ever sees. On the surface, they may appear to be living a life of privilege, but in reality, these women are often trapped in a relationship with a powerful, sophisticated abuser who threatens to destroy them in every conceivable way if they should ever leave. In working with our survivors, we address the more obvious forms of abuse, such as physical and sexual violence, but we also have a unique area of focus on other types of abuse, such as emotional, financial, legal, and technological, and other behaviors that are controlling, isolating, and threatening, but harder to identify because they don't leave visible wounds. These types of abuse fall under the umbrella of coercive control, and these are dangerous behaviors. Coercive control is also a lethality risk. and it can include physical violence. In fact, strangulation is one of the most lethal forms of coercive control, and approximately 35% of our survivors have experienced non-fatal strangulation at the hands of their partner who may be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, CEO of his own company. So this is our core team at Women of Silicon Valley. They all have their state certification in domestic violence advocacy and the privilege of counselor victim confidentiality under Evidence Code 1037. This is Q, our executive administrative assistant. She's fluent in French, Spanish, and Vietnamese. This is Emma, our director of marketing, development, and operations. Myself, founder and executive director, and Esperanza, my full-time domestic violence advocate assistant with 20 years experience as a family law attorney, and 10 of those were spent advising judges on restraining orders as a DV domestic violence specialist. Plus, we have a wonderful board of directors, an advisory board, and many dedicated volunteers. There are 3 parts to our program. The first part is direct client services, which include a helpline, a weekly support group, ongoing individual meetings where we develop a close personal relationship with each survivor, and we continue to meet with them individually for as long as they want, in some cases for years. Our survivors come from all different races, all countries, religions, and cultural backgrounds. The one thing they share in common is being trapped in a relationship with a sophisticated abuser. We also connect our survivors with resources depending on what they need: private investigators, cybersecurity experts, financial analysts. We provide survivors with gift cards if needed, or a burner phone, and sometimes a basic laptop if their electronics have been compromised. And in Silicon Valley, many of our survivors have experienced severe technological abuse. We provide, we don't charge for our services because we believe it's every woman and child's right to be free and safe in their own home, and they shouldn't have to pay to exercise that right. That's one reason, but another is because of the rampant financial abuse in this demographic. On paper, it might look like our survivors come from a background of privilege, but the reality is often something very different, where their abuser has taken total control of their resources and plunged them into crippling debt or bankruptcy, and he often threatens to make them homeless. The second part of our program is professional education. I was a teacher before becoming an advocate, and education continues to be very important to me, along with safety planning. Knowledge is power, and when it comes to domestic violence, education is one of the most effective forms of intervention. The earlier, the better. So we do professional trainings for providers to help them become more trauma-informed in working with this population. And then the third part of our program is community outreach, where we educate the community at large. We give public presentations for employers, service clubs, and schools to raise awareness about domestic violence and coercive control. And I also write a column on coercive control in our local newspaper, and I do interviews for other media as well. These are some examples of places where we presented or done trainings or been interviewed on the issue of abuse in middle to upper income areas. Places like Google, Google X, Oracle, the Megyn Kelly Today Show, Good Morning America. Last week it was a town hall meeting and an 8-hour training for the Orange County Probation Department. This year I was honored to be one of the speakers at the International Americas Conference to End Coercive Control. And Evan Stark, who's pictured here, was the keynote speaker who wrote the book literally on coercive control. That's the title. I'm also a frequent presenter at the annual conference put on by Santa Clara County's Domestic Violence Council. And here's an example of one of my articles in my column in the Los Altos Town Crier. We started our program under the fiscal sponsorship of the Los Altos Community Foundation back in 2011. And 2021, this year, marks our 10-year anniversary. 10 years later, as an independent nonprofit, we are still going strong. And after making it our focus for the past 10 years, we've established a national reputation for expertise in the area of coercive control. This type of abuse includes these more subtle forms of abuse. We are the only nonprofit in the United States, in fact, with this focus, and that's why we get calls not just from local survivors, but from all over the country. Some breaking news about coercive control here is that as of January of this year, coercive control has been incorporated into the definition of domestic violence, expanding the definition of disturbing the peace, in family court at least, and it can be grounds for a restraining order. And we have Senator Susan Rubio to thank for that. a domestic violence survivor herself. Since we started 10 years ago, Women SV has served about 1,000 survivors. And last fiscal year was our busiest yet. We served 196 survivors. And we're on track to serve even more than that this year. These charts take a closer look at the demographics of the women we serve. Most of our clients are local to California, with 58% of them from Santa Clara County and 20% from San Mateo County. But you can see from the yellow part of the pie chart that survivors from all across the United States are seeking support from us because of our unique focus on coercive control. So we are doing the best we can to meet the need, but because of our small size, that's really been our limiting factor as demand for our services continue to grow. And here in Cupertino, the percentage of women that we've served have also grown over the years. In all of fiscal year 2020, 7% of the women we served came from Cupertino. So far this year, this fiscal year already, 8% of our new survivors are from Cupertino, and that's not even counting May or June yet. So more and more Cupertino residents are becoming aware of our services, and more of them are reaching out to us for help. This past year has been a challenge for so many, and we are no exception, nor are the survivors that we serve, for a number of reasons. Survivors, when they reach out to us, they are more and more desperate, more frightened, more endangered than ever, now that they are trapped around the clock with their abuser. Our helpline is becoming a crisis line. We're working very hard to meet the need, but it's getting more and more challenging to keep up with the demand given our tiny team, small, but mighty, but still small. We're having to make survivors wait sometimes 4 to 6 weeks for that first appointment. And we are referring to our sister agencies to give them added support in the meantime. But we have to hire more advocates to continue to meet the needs. And we want to get into the schools to educate young people so they recognize these early warning signs of controlling behavior and get out before they get in too deep. This all takes funding. And we don't charge survivors for our services because we believe it's every person's fundamental human right to be free and safe in their own home, but also because of the rampant financial abuse in this demographic. Many are facing extreme poverty, and a number of them have become homeless. So we have to find other ways to raise money. Another challenge is that we've had to shift all our operations to virtual support. And because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to hold our usual in-person fundraisers. So that means we've raised about 1/3 of what we normally raise through our in-person gatherings. So COVID continues to have a significant impact on our survivors and on the operations here at Women SV. At the same time as the number of survivors reaching out to us for help is growing. And in part, it's because geography is no longer a factor, not just because of our unique focus on coercive control, but also because they can call us from all over the country just by picking up the phone and doing a Zoom call with us. So this kind of work can be lonely work. So thank God for the partnerships we've built over the years with hospital foundations, elected officials, law enforcement, court systems, media, other domestic violence agencies and donors. For example, we're blessed to receive funding from Los Altos City Council, and we work closely with the Los Altos Police Department in addressing domestic violence in local residents. We've also brought survivors into the Cupertino substation, and the deputies there have been wonderful. We hope that you'll consider partnering with us as well and consider making a donation to Women SV as we look forward to serving more and more residents here in Cupertino. You know, as hard as it is to live with an abuser, it's almost impossible to leave without outside help. Over 70% of domestic violence incidents happen after a woman leaves her abuser. So if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes another village to leave an abuser. With your help, we can all be that village and continue to reach more and more survivors who are struggling to build a safer life for themselves and for their children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Much appreciated. I know that I'm trying to keep it within a few minutes for the presentations, but I just feel this information is so incredibly critical and important. And also the work that you do is just fundamental to making sure that we have a peaceful and harmonious society that treats people fairly. And if you interweave all of these various aspects, whether it's fairness or justice or honesty and integrity, the way we treat other people on a fundamental level is just the most essential part of all of that. So thank you very much for being here this evening. And we will certainly keep you in our thoughts and prayers, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity in the future to provide, or at least very much consider the support for Women SV. So thanks very much, and please keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
Have a great night. Okay, so at this point, we are at postponements and orders of the day. I will set forth the motion that I had requested earlier. What I will be doing is that I will move that immediately after this item, I will go ahead and provide our report out from closed session, both from today on May 24th and May 28th. I would like to ask leave of council to bring part of reports by council and staff, which would normally be items 4 and 5, up to directly after I report out on closed session, so that we may address, as part of our reports out briefly, the recent announcement by our city manager that she will be retiring in approximately 4 weeks now, a little under that. And then finally, I will ask for leave from council to continue with the remainder of the public commentary on our study session item with regard to the item concerning the community grant funding and the consideration of the Cupertino Historical Society as a line item. And again, there were 3 more members of the community who had their hands raised on time to speak to that. May I have a second for that motion? And I'll go by a raise of hands. Councilmember Way?
I'll second that.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Any care for discussion on that item? Seeing no further raised hands, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote on that?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. I'll go ahead and start with the first of those items. This is the closed session report. On June 1st, 2021, which was earlier this evening, we had a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The property is the Cupertino Municipal Water System. The agency negotiator is Roger Lee. The negotiating parties are the City of Cupertino and San Jose Water Company. Under negotiation is the terms for the city leased asset. There was no reportable action taken by council at that closed session. There was also a special closed session meeting held on May 24th, 2021. This is the regularly scheduled updates on litigation that I'm implementing this month so that our city council is familiar with our litigation issues. The first item was pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, a conference with legal counsel regarding the following existing litigations. First, there was David Wessel and Karen Platt versus the City of Cupertino in San Jose in Santa Clara County Superior Court. Second, B, there was the City of Arcata et al. Versus PG&E, and that is in the San Francisco County Superior Court. And third, C, was Huang family versus City of Cupertino, and that's in the Santa Clara County Superior Court. The report out is as follows. Council discussed with legal counsel these pending cases for which discussion in open session would prejudice the city and the litigation, and no reportable action was taken. Second, also on May 24th, there was a conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, and this is initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. And there were 2 potential cases. The report out is as follows. Council discussed with legal counsel the potential initiation of litigation for 2 matters for which discussion in open session would prejudice the city and the potential litigation, and as well, no reportable action was taken. There was a special closed meeting held on May 28th, 2021. The first item was a conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. There was a significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, and that was one potential case. The report out on that item is that council discussed with legal counsel a threat of litigation for which discussion in open session would prejudice the city in the potential litigation, and no reportable action was taken. The second item was a conference with with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, and this was initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4 with one potential case. The report out there was counsel discussed with legal counsel the potential initiation of litigation for one matter for which discussion in open session would prejudice the city in the potential litigation, and no reportable action was taken there. Finally, the third item, which I think took everybody by surprise in the middle of last week, was a public employee appointment and public employment that falls under Government Code Section 54957B1, and the title was City Manager. The report out is no reportable action was taken, but at this point, I wanted to be able to take some time from our council reports as well as staff report. First off, and again briefly, to provide our city manager a big thank you for your service in these 2 years that you've been here in the near 2 years, and also to give you an opportunity at our council meeting to say a few words to the public. And I'm sure after that, our council would like to say a few words as well. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I just wanted to make a few quick remarks for the public and just say it's been a rewarding and very challenging couple of years here in Cupertino, in part with other cities as well. I've enjoyed my time in Cupertino and appreciate the support of the council and their efforts on behalf of the Cupertino community. Over the next month, I will work very hard, of course, to ensure that there's a smooth working transition between myself and whoever the interim city manager is during that period of time. Thank you so much for the opportunity to make some public remarks.
Thank you so much, Deb. And sincerely, we greatly appreciated and appreciate your presence here at the helm of our staff. I'll go by hands. I'm happy to share a few remarks, but if anyone on council would like to share before that, I'd be happy to take hands. I see Councilmember Wei has a hand raised. Welcome, Councilmember Wei.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I just want to say, Deb, I've known you only a short 6 months. I'm on council, but I am very impressed with your engagement. Every time I email you with a resident's concerns, you always make sure you respond to it. So I had a great working relationship with you. I'm very sad to see you go, but I know that you have other opportunities, and I'm sure you'll come back to your hometown and visit us. So best of luck to you. And I'm very glad I got to get to know you in person as also in the city affairs for the short 6 months that I'm at council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei. Next, we have Councilmember Wu.
Yeah. City Manager Deborah, thank you so much for your efforts on behalf of the community. I mean, you are carrying a huge load, a staff of over a couple hundred people and a community of 64,000. So when we were looking for a city manager, what really caught my eye was your focus on community. And that's the reason I'm here, is the community. And so thank you for renewing the focus on community by our city government. I think we still have work to do, but you carried the football down the field, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow.
Hi, Deborah. So, yeah, it's really sad to see you go. And however, I have to say, since last year, I have kind of been expecting it, because I think you are, I don't know, I just thought it seems you have bigger plans and Cupertino is too small for you. I think when we interviewed city managers, we actually had great candidates for very experienced, but we took a leap of faith because we see in you something great that Tino really need at that time, is the ability to bring people together. And then you have been able to do that. And I know it's a steep learning curve for you, and you have worked so very hard to get up to speed on everything, and then have supported this council to complete the library expansion project, the meaty Lawrence, the very difficult Rignot Creek Trail, and yeah, it's just many hours of work. Thank you so much. And then I know that this council has probably put a lot of demand on the city staff because we all care a lot about community engagement. So we started a coffee talk, which you took over and make it better. And we started a park walk, we started town halls, and then you have continuing to host town halls to continue the community engagement. So really that you are putting a lot of effort in connecting with the residents and responding to so many emails. And thank you so much for so much excellent work. Really sad to see you go, but best wishes to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Next, we have Councilmember Moore.
Well, this seems early. We still have a month of work to do. So, wow, I just really want to thank you for the work that you've done, particularly with regards to steering this ship through COVID. It was, no one could anticipate that was going to happen, and you did a beautiful job. You also had the challenge of the growing homeless camps and what to do. You knew their names, you knew their stories, you helped them get housing, and probably were given one of the toughest projects to work on, and you balanced both sides of that issue and spoke to the residents and were extremely compassionate to help everyone there. I also want to thank you for the knowledge base that you brought from NASA and the technical background there. I've totally enjoyed our one-on-one discussions. It's been great. I wish you the best wherever you land. I know you're going to do beautifully. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. And I just want to largely reiterate what people have said. Deb, you did an incredible job bringing our community together. And I was always very impressed with your tirelessness and your willingness to take the time and follow up very quickly with regard to issues that we set forth in front of you. I think that's something that you don't find in most people. And I think it was well worth the effort and care that council set forth to make sure that your onboarding here was successful, that your time here was good. And I really feel a sense of accomplishment for being able to take someone from a federal agency that frankly did not have the prior work in a municipality and being able to bring that knowledge base over to Cupertino. Some of the things that you worked on that you helped us usher through, as mentioned, was the Cupertino library expansion. Not many people mentioned the promotion of public health and safety during the COVID-19 pandemic as being something that was very much a collaboration, not just with council and yourself, but with the community. And I think we should all be really happy that we essentially locked arms and ensured that we had the lowest transmission rates in the county. And that's not just in the beginning or in the middle, but in the end and all the way through. And so we did an incredible job there. We've passed legislation that's been carefully crafted, protecting the environment. We've worked to address the housing crisis effectively. And honestly, and I know that the heat from the community at times, not just from this issue, but many issues, is essentially unrelenting. But I thank you for hanging in there and making sure that our expansion of efforts for quality of life for our community goes by as successfully as it can. And then, yes, we did finally commence and conclude the purchase of the Lawrence Mitty site. But of course, that's not done yet either. And in your remaining 3-some weeks, we'll make sure that we'll deliver that park to the community. No, I'm just kidding. But in any event, we'll make sure that we'll be able to keep this ball rolling. And Deb, you've made your mark on the progress Cupertino has been making. The council really does appreciate your service, and we wish you the very best in your future endeavors. And I want to assure the community as well that we do have much going on right now, but we'll be proceeding comprehensively, effectively, and as quickly as possible to fill this position with an eye on our long-term success. Deb, I think everyone acknowledges that we have very big shoes to fill at this point, but at the same time, you know, the conversations that you and I have had over the last couple of working days gives me a great deal of heartening, and I appreciate your willingness to work with us to ensure that the transition to not just an interim city manager, but to a permanent city manager to succeed you will be as successful as we can make it. So thanks very much.
I thank the council for the very kind remarks. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we are on to the continued item from our study session, and I'll read out the names. They are Bruce Parsons, Lisa Warren, and Orrin Mahoney. And to remind everyone, this again was the study session item earlier tonight in the second item of our special meeting, and that had to do with our community grant funding program, as well as the allocation and consideration of that allocation as a line item for ongoing historical society funding. And so, Bruce, welcome. And that's Bruce Parsons. You'll need to unmute yourself.
See, am I muted?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Two main points I'd like to make. One is about the Historical Society funding. The funding isn't requested for a specific single shot in the arm activity or event. It's more in the line of working capital to cover all of the things that Jennifer talked about earlier. And I would like to really stress the importance that I believe that setting the Historical Society up as a line item for repeat funding that they can plan on, count on, it's predictable, is critical. The second thing I'd like to talk about is a couple of comments about the Snyder Hammond house up by the quarry. Earlier, one of the speakers said that the society is not spending the $20,000 maintaining that house. Well, in fact, that is true. Approximately 50% of that $20,000, $10,000 is spent to rent climate-controlled space elsewhere in the city to store documents and books and research material and items that could be damaged if they were stored in a non-climate controlled environment. Quite a bit of the money is also spent on grounds maintenance. You know, weeds grow pretty fast up there, and there isn't much left to be available to spend on maintaining that property. There's no public access to that property, so it's very difficult for the society to find a use that will provide income. You know, it's not a profit center. It doesn't make any money. And quite frankly, if I was a seaman, I would say it's a real albatross around our necks. The key thing that I would like to say is that the Snyder Hammond house is not a historical society asset. It's a community asset. It's a community problem. It needs a community-wide solution. It needs a joint task force between the Historical Society and the city to find out what to do with it, make a plan, and for developing it and maintaining it, rather than
15 seconds.
opposite sides of the fence all the time. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Our next speaker is Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So the Snyder Hammond House, to me, in things that I've heard over the years and things I've read recently, it's concerning to me that the Historical Society is not really enforcing some of the things that are in their lease with Lehigh. The lease calls for Lehigh to provide appropriate security for the premises and to ensure that the premises are safe and secure. If you're cleaning up vandalism and you're abating weeds, that sounds to me, that's a tenant responsibility in this lease. And if that's where the money's going, it doesn't seem right. I don't know where that $120,000 went. That lease is a 9-year lease. It's up in September this year with an option to renew for a year. You know, maybe something more profitable could happen. And I'm just concerned that there's no documentation of any of this stuff. And I don't know if there have been in past years. I also note that in the application for $20,000 this year, the response to a question, would you ask again in the following year? I think this is how it went. The answer was yes, but you would increase your request for $30,000. So I'm uncomfortable with a bunch of this stuff, and I think it needs some more exploration. And I'm also concerned about who was involved in signing that lease 9 years ago, because there was a Lehigh employee involved with that was also on the Historical Society, maybe even a leader. I can't recall and I can't find it. I had to go do some work while I was waiting to speak. So I have concerns about it and the assumption that it will happen. You know, I was a Historical Society member for a short time. It's not that I don't believe in what you do or what they do. I just think the other part of the lease was that Lehigh would allow them to store things there. So if they have a storage issue, I get the climate control thing, but not everything is climate control needed, I don't think. And I don't appreciate actually the tone that's given that the office or the museum size has shrunk within Quinlan. There's a tone in that whole communication that doesn't make me feel there's appreciation for what they do have. Sorry, it's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next and final speaker on this study session item is Oren Mahoney. Welcome, Oren.
Am I unmuted?
We can hear you.
Perfect. I'll keep it very short. First of all, since this thing did bump over to the other thing and we've had this discussion, I do want to say my thank you to Deb Fang for her service, and I hope she does well in whatever she intends to do. So I'm not going to talk all too much here. I'm just wanted the council to know that the Cupertino Rotary is geared up and ready to produce one of Cupertino's first live community events since the pandemic. We're eager to have a fun event, but also to interact with the community on the latest items in the environmental, health and safety area, including any remaining COVID issues, wildfire protection, and all of those kinds of things. We do have some news this year that just came out in the last month, and that is that the Scouts of America will be joining us in a major way with up to 40 booths focusing on various hands-on activities. So I thank you guys for your past support and hopefully for your support again this year. And I look forward to seeing you at the festival with the community. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Oren. That concludes the public commentary for our study session item. As encapsulated in our motion ending the study session and special meeting, as well as the orders of the day and postponements item earlier allowing us to continue and conclude the public commentary, we will be continuing this item to the date and time certain of Friday, June 4th at 6:15 p.m. is when that special meeting on the budget study session item is scheduled to continue. I will be placing this item first on the agenda insofar as addressing it. And so we will get that noticed appropriately, and we will continue this item until that meeting. And I know our city clerk's office as well as the city attorney's office likely need to confer, given the fact that the special meeting has already been noticed. And so we will be sure to do this in a appropriate fashion, but that is the idea. We're going to put this on a continuation into the Friday meeting. Madam City Attorney, did you want to speak to that at this point to clarify anything? My understanding is that we'll be able to take it up at 6:15 this Friday.
That's correct, and the city clerk will post a notice of continuance to that effect, letting the public know these items can continue to that date.
Great, perfect, thank you so much. At this point, we'll go on to the rest of the agenda. And again, and thank you for bearing with us here. I borrowed a bit from items 4 and 5 to provide the information regarding Madam City Manager's announcement. And so we're back to item number 4. These are brief reports on council member activities and brief announcements. Oh, I apologize. Let me go to oral communications. That is actually the next item on our agenda. Sorry about that. I will go ahead and open up oral communications. Please raise your hand by the time the first speaker is done speaking. Right now, I see a number of hands raised. There are 12. Our first 3 hands are from Sharon Blaine and Kita Goyal, and someone with a handle of Vigi34. And so you'll need to have your hand raised by the time Sharon is done speaking. And if you do, I will call on you within oral communications. Welcome, Sharon, and to the public, you will have 3 minutes for your remarks. And Sharon, oh.
Okay. I don't believe that I have the right to speak now because the item I was going to speak on is no longer on the table and has been postponed to Friday. I did speak a little bit ago about the history of Cupertino's Historical Society.
Right,
So,
and you did pool your time, Sharon, with the other speakers, and so that was your allocation of time there.
okay, so I don't think that I have the right to speak now.
Okay, well, it's yeah, it was agendized as well. So thank you very much, Sharon.
Okay, I understand.
All right, so we'll make our effective first speaker Ankita Goyal then. Ankita, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes we can.
Okay. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk, Mayor Paul and other council members. I'll be very quick and I will not take that much time. I wanted to talk about the Dola, the dog off-leash park in Jollyman, and wanted to give a little bit background about me and my dog Chewbacca. We have been going there since 2017, and I'm very happy to tell you that we started that small community with 7 to 8 dogs and family members. And now we are a big community of 50 dogs and their family members. So it has been very, very successful over all these years. And I've seen pre-COVID environment. I've seen COVID environment when like it was eased and the dogs were still coming. And now, and it has, I would say, been very, very successful in all that period, like tough time and easier time. And all I would like to do is request you to bring that back into our agenda on June 15th. And I would request you to make DOLA permanent because I was, that was my first public speaking at city council meeting. And I don't know, like I've said that multiple times, and I would like to repeat that it's not only for dogs, it's for the family of the dog owners. We have built a very, very strong community and we love to be there. We are, rain or shine, we are always there whenever possible. And we want to bring this community together and, strong. And the best part is that it doesn't cost any money. It's like zero budget for this. And all these years, in 4 years, we have collected data and we have proved that it is very successful and it's really, really good for community. And that was one of the big things, like, for you on the agenda and for other things, that how do we bring Cupertino community together? And this is one of the great ways to do it. That's all I wanted to request, that please bring that back on agenda on June 15th, and please make doula permanent. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Ankita. I see that there are 14 other hands raised right now. I'll go ahead and, just for bookkeeping purposes, call off these names that I saw during the course of the first speaker. Those are call-in user 3, Ruchika Varanasi, Mary Ellen Chell, Lauren Jacobs, Luis Sadati, Jean Bedord, Steve Manjaya Hegda, Kelly Deepa Mahandraker, John Rotafry, Vigi 34, Vanessa Tekmansky, and Charlene Shulian Lee. So the next speaker is call-in user 3. I believe you have a phone call in, and you will need to push *6 on your phone to be heard. Welcome. And so I only see a handle that's listed as call-in user 3. So if you're on your phone and you have raised your hand, I think by pressing *9, then this would be your opportunity to speak. Otherwise, I will go on to Ruchika Varanasi. All right, thank you very much. Call-in user 3, I'll try to get back to you before our last speaker. Welcome, Ruchika. Welcome, Ruchika.
I am here to talk about Jolly Mandola. My name is Ruchika Varanasi, and I am in 6th grade. I have a 10-month-old black lab named Story, who is very rambunctious, but we love very dearly. She's a member of our family. She loves to play more than eating even, and boy, do labs love food. Under-exercised dogs can lead to issues such as pent-up energy, which can lead to destruction. We got Story during the pandemic, and it was challenging to find playmates for her. My mom used to take her to faraway paid socials that were timed and indoors. They did not give her much room to run around and play until we came to know about Jolly Mandola. Dola allows dogs to have interaction with other dogs and also playtime, which can be beneficial in 2 ways. The first way is by allowing the dog to get out all of their energy by playing chase me and wrestling with other dogs. The second way is socialization, which is a key part of dog growth and development. Socialization with other dogs is very important, and Dola allows that because there are dogs of all sizes, shapes, and breeds, which allows Story to interact with small dogs and big dogs and learn how to play with them properly. In addition, it was the only time during the pandemic that I was able to meet my friends who came with their dogs, as it was safe to do so outside with masks and social distancing. Dola provided a safe environment for Story and me to meet with and play with our friends, creating a nice supportive family outside our own family in a terrible year when everything was disrupted. I was really hoping to present my case as to why Dola is very important to all of us, but was very disappointed to hear about the city's decision to deprioritize it and continue with the child. I sincerely hope that Dola will be added back to the agenda and made permanent as soon as possible. I hope to grow up in a community where dogs and their owners are given consideration in our society because they're such an important part of our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruchika. Our next speaker is Mary Ellen Chell. Welcome, Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Mayor Paul, and thank you, City Council members, for all that you do. I sure am glad I never ran for council because you guys really have your work cut out for you. I also want to thank Deb Feng for the great job that she has done. I have to say, I am so proud of our city for what we did for the homeless. So thank you all. I want to talk about the Jolly Mandola as well. At Dola, they call me the sheriff because I let newcomers know what the rules are and regulars know that they need to stay in compliance with the Dola rules. Dola has been a tremendous success. We have a wonderful community of kids, dogs, and adults. We have 164 participants in our WhatsApp group and more who are not on the app. I am a widow and a senior and do not have two-legged kids, only my four-legged boy, Theo. I have developed some fabulous friendships at the Jolly Mandola. Going there every night, and I have to go there every night because my pup reminds me, and seeing all my friends there is one of the joys of my life. There have been studies and they show there have been no major incidences. So I am asking you, our city council, to put DOLA on the June 15th agenda and to make Jolly Mandola permanent. Please, please, please do this for us. And one last thing I want to say, as a senior, I could get exemptions on my property tax. I don't take them because I'm happy to support our schools for our two-legged kids. My four-legged kid doesn't go to school. So I am asking for your support for our community, for myself, for my four-legged kid, and for our DOLA participants. Thank you so very much for all your service and for considering my request.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. And our next speaker is Lauren Jacobs. Welcome, Lauren. Or Lorene, I apologize.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, that's great. I was wondering how I was going to unmute. That's wonderful. I wanted to second Mary Ellen Chell on her thanking you all for the incredible work you do for our city. So good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council members. I've been a resident of Cupertino for over 40 years, and I am a member of the Silicon Valley Gun Violence Prevention Organization, and I'm speaking tonight to request that Cupertino will eventually agendize and adopt the Santa Clara County Safe Storage of Firearms Ordinance that has been adopted and is in the process of being adopted by most of the incorporated towns in Santa Clara County. This will be an ordinance stating that firearms in a home be securely stored in a locked container or disabled with a trigger lock unless worn or carried by the gun owner. The statistics are this: one small child dies almost every day in this country after finding an unlocked firearm in their own home, a relative's home, or while playing at a friend's home. 2 teenagers die every day in this country by suicide from an unlocked firearm he or she obtained at their home or a relative's. A safe storage ordinance has become more urgent than ever before because of COVID, given the dramatic rise in gun sales we've seen with this pandemic. Even in the first few months of COVID, we saw a shocking 43% increase in unintentional deaths of small children and a 9% increase in teen gun suicides. Last year in Cupertino, gun homicide rose, in California, gun homicide rose by 48%. Now, as the country is beginning to open up after the pandemic, with schools also, we are witnessing a dramatic rise in gun violence with mass shootings. Some people are under the impression that the California Penal Code already addresses this issue, but it definitely does not. It does not define how to safely store a firearm. For example, parents, thinking this makes their guns safe, often hide them in closets, under mattresses, rather than locking them up. But studies show 70% of children know where these guns are hidden. Please let's protect Cupertino from a potential gun shooting or deaths of small children and teens by passing this law. Laws do not ensure that everyone will follow them, but they are a necessary starting point, and most people will follow the law. I believe Cupertino residents deserve to be better protected with a safe firearm storage ordinance, just as the towns around us have done. I do have a meeting with the city manager next week and hope that Deb, the information we give Deb can be acted upon by the council.
Lorraine, thank you. Your time has elapsed, and so we thank you. The next speaker is Louise Sadati. Welcome, Louise.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself. So I'm Louise Sadati, and I'm one of the leaders in the leadership group that manages the Jolly Mandola Dogs Off Leash area. And we actually have a lot of people that we represent, over 160 people on WhatsApp, and even more people that don't sign up on WhatsApp, and we could actually have a lot more speakers raising their hands tonight, but to respect your time during open communications, we purposely limited ourselves to just a few speakers to represent the huge number of dog owners at the DOLA who are behind us. We want to thank you for your time, your dedication, your service. We've been working with you and your predecessors since 2017. We're trying to be cooperative and diligent, and I think we've worked very well and collaboratively with the City Council since 2017. We were very surprised to be suddenly off the agenda, and so that leads us to why we're suddenly feeling the need to speak during open communications today. I started coming to the park because my dog was becoming very reactive, aggressive, and barking like a vicious dog, lunging at other dogs. And after I went to the DOLA and she realized how ridiculous she was being, and she was introduced to all these other well-behaved dogs, it was like a child in a classroom of other children. She suddenly became calm and knew that everything was okay when she was approached by another dog. So actually our DOLA decreases and the aggression in dogs and actually helps to make them more socialized. And also during DOLA, we developed a community. I was actually able to talk to people, and it made such a huge difference in my life to form these friends. So to keep it short, the Jolly Mandola is successful and ongoing since 2017. We want the DOLA to be given permanent status. We're requesting to be put on the City Council agenda on June 15th. Please, please, please do this for us, the children. We have so many children, the adults, the dogs. There's so many children that come by themselves. They don't own dogs. They come to play with the dogs because the parents trust and allow that in our environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you for curtailing the volume of your speakers. It's very much appreciated, and Council does hear the sentiments. Our next speaker is Jean Bedord. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether I need to read this or Kirsten. I am here on behalf of Connie Cunningham. Kirsten, would you like me to read it or would you like to read it?
Sure, you can read it.
Okay. This is on behalf of Connie Cunningham, who is traveling and can't be at council tonight. She has a letter which says, "Dear Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members, I am writing to join with Cupertino residents and the Silicon Valley Gun Violence Prevention Alliance to ask the Cupertino City Council to adopt a secure storage of firearms ordinance. This ordinance would require all firearms in a home to be stored in a locked container or disabled with a locking device unless the firearms are in use. An overwhelming number of towns and cities have already adopted this measure in California. In Cupertino, we are already seeing our neighboring towns lead on this issue and adopt this ordinance as well. I am urging Cupertino to do the same. Our country has been experiencing a dramatic rise in gun violence over the last 20 years, but it has really accelerated this past year. While a secure storage ordinance won't prevent all gun violence, it is a step in the right direction. It's an easy one for a local government to do. Please keep our community safe. Sincerely, Connie Cunningham, 34-year resident and longtime donor to Gabby Gifford's PAC, Courage to Fight Gun Violence." Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, on behalf of Connie Cunningham. And our next speaker is simply named Steve. Welcome, Steve.
Mayor Paul and City Council members, my name is Steve Jacobs, and I am also a longtime resident of Cupertino. I request the City Council also to adopt a safe storage of firearms ordinance. Research has shown that keeping guns securely stored does not hinder self-protection. A gun can be accessed within seconds, but it does prevent unintentional deaths of children and teen suicides by as much as 85%, depending on the type of storage. Storing firearms in a securely locked container can also prevent guns from being easily stolen in a home robbery. A Department of Justice approved safe storage device can be obtained for as little as $40, and trigger locks are even less expensive. There is a common sense law. This is a common sense law that can truly protect lives and could actually save the city and county money by reducing the number of sheriff responses and emergency room visits necessitated by accidental or self-inflicted shootings. Adopting the existing ordinance from Santa Clara County, which is already law but applies only to the unincorporated regions, would require less of an effort on the part of your staff. I ask you to please adopt an ordinance on securing safe storage of firearms. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Our next speaker is Manjaya Hegde. Welcome, Manjaya.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Mayor Paul and Vice Mayor Chow and rest of the City Council members, as well as City Manager Deborah and the City Attorney. Thank you for accommodating us here to talk about Joliman-Dola agenda, as well as you mentioned, Mayor Paul, one of the presentations, peaceful, harmonious society. That's very well you said it. And for that, I think our DOLA is a successful project which is supported by entire City Council as well as rest of the community is going very well. Our humble request for you and your team to make that Joliman-Dola as a permanent dog off-leash area, as well as add this agenda for June 15th. And we're looking forward to working with you very cooperative way. And thank you for all your support and also from the previous predecessors. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjaya. And our next speaker is Kelly. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, yeah, my name is Kelly Traver, and I represent the 173 Cupertino Moms Demand Action supporters. Moms Demand is a group of gun owners and non-gun owners, and our mission is really just to help reduce gun violence and improve gun safety. We're not opposed to the Second Amendment, but we believe the common sense gun laws need to be enacted to better protect people. We're asking that you adopt a safe storage of firearm ordinance, as Cupertino's surrounding towns have done or are in the process of doing. It would be an easy thing for the town to do. It wouldn't cost any money. So I'd like to just address a few questions that you may have. Hopefully I can give answers to. First, is it constitutional? It is absolutely constitutional. It was the first city to bring about safe storage was in 2007. It was challenged by the NRA, but it was upheld in the federal courts, 9th District, as constitutional, and now more than 40 cities and towns across California have adopted it. Second, is it enforceable? So, of course, we don't expect police to go door to door looking for unsecured firearms. Only if the police were lawfully in one's home and noticed an unsecured firearm would there be a penalty. Some gun advocates would then say, well, this means it can't be enforced, so why have it? And the answer is that most people are law-abiding and will follow the law if the law exists, but there needs to be a law. Also, simply having the law often changes culture. The seatbelt law of the 80s was a similar sort of thing where, people don't even think about it now. Our culture has been changed. Third, some people will object to being told what they can do in their own home, but there are plenty of things you can't do in your own home. You can't do domestic violence, child molestation, murder. I mean, that doesn't mean there shouldn't be a law. So speaking on behalf of the 173 Moms Demand Action supporters in Cupertino, I ask the council to please put a safe storage ordinance on the municipal code to better protect its residents. Let's proactively work to eliminate consequences of unsecured firearms. I really appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Our next speaker is Deepa Mahendrekar. Welcome, Deepa.
Okay, on yours. Yeah.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Mayor Paul, Vice Mayor Chow, and other council members, thank you so much for giving us a chance to talk to you. I am one of the original advocates and supporter for Jolly Man Dogs off-leash area. It started as an ask from a small set of families in December 2017, and we built overwhelming support from the neighborhood, even with people who don't have dogs. Our ask was always very small. It was deliberately kept that way. We did not want to create an ask that will be very hard for the council members to approve and to digest. Our ask was a 2-hour-a-day trial in one corner of one park, Jollyman Park, because that's where most of the families that we were working with went, for our dogs to play off leash. It's been tremendously successful. And nothing can prove it more than just the number of dogs and people you see there and the number of advocates that could potentially come here. Again, we're not overwhelming you or trying to take up too much of your time. We just have a few people coming in to reiterate on behalf of the 160 plus people on WhatsApp and other places. Our ask was, hey, try it out. Let us try it out. Let a trial run. And if the trial is successful, we will request to make it permanent. The council members at that time very kindly made it happen, 5-0. All 5 members at that time approved it. Today, we are here for another small ask. The Jollyman Dola is successful. It's been thought of since 2017 and execution since 2019. Please make Jollyman Dola permanent. Please make this a special agenda item in the upcoming council meeting on June 15th, so we can provide all the data you need to make the decision on making Jollyman Dola successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deepa. Our next speaker is John. Welcome, John. Did I call it John already?
Yep. I'm here. Thank you. Good evening.
Welcome.
And can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is John Selling, and I ask that the council adopt a safe storage of firearms ordinance. Most of the towns in Santa Clara County have already done this or have decided to do this, including Santa Clara County itself. I'm a physician, and I can assure you that small children and teens dying from unsecured firearms is more common than you think and is absolutely soul-crushing for everyone involved. Parents may feel that if they simply educate their children on the dangers of firearms and tell them not to touch them, that they will listen. This is definitely not the case with many children. Children are curious, and they investigate things that they're curious about. 1 in 3 homes in this country have at least one firearm, and research shows that 60% are not secured. Studies show 70% of children who live in homes with firearms know where their parents keep their guns, and a shocking number have actually handled them without their parents' knowledge. Firearms must be locked up or disabled with a locking device when being stored. Teenager access to firearms is equally tragic. The teenage years can be tumultuous, emotional, and can culminate in suicidal thoughts that are often very transient. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is not fully developed until the mid-20s, so teens lack judgment. The prefrontal area also controls rational thought and impulse control. A suicide attempt using measures other than a gun results in death only 5% of the time. But when a gun is used, it results in death 90% of the time. Guns simply need to be locked up when not in use. A secure storage law can save the lives of children and teens by up to 85%, which is why so many towns across California have already adopted a secure storage law. I hope Cupertino will do the same. Thank you. I appreciate being able to speak. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John. And our next speaker is Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Good evening, council members. First, I'd like to ask if the meeting links on the agenda are more clear. Tonight, I got stuck in the closed session meeting thinking that it had run over and I was waiting to be let in. If I'd been sitting at City Hall, I wouldn't have been sitting in the wrong room. I didn't get to speak on the first agenda item. When I got on, the Historical Society was presenting and I raised my hand, but then I lowered it thinking that they were presenters and not speakers. Anyway, second, I'm wondering whether people will be able to speak at the Friday meeting. And now for a Lehigh update. Last week at the County Housing, Land Use, Environment, and Transportation meeting, we learned in the packet that Stevens Creek Quarry is $1 million short in their bond to ensure adequate funds for reclaiming the property toward a secondary beneficial use per state law. So that means when they're done mining, it could get turned into a park, similar to Quicksilver Almaden or Saratoga Quarry Park, etc. What worries me more is that Lehigh's bond is only $60 million if you consider that Valley Water Permanente flood project cost $84 million. It's clear that $60 million just isn't enough. This puts us taxpayers at risk for restoring the land, siphoning money away from other priorities. Both quarry expansion proposals are huge, but unlike other developments, there's no signage. I think we need signage in a number of locations to show the public what these massive projects will entail. Separately, the City of Los Altos is asking for input from the public for directions to staff and their Environment Commission at their council meeting on June 8 about the quarries and their impacts. Finally, Heidelberg Cement is selling off all of its assets in 4 western states to Martin Marietta, except for Permanente. Perhaps it is too much of a liability. Lehigh is just a bad actor. As you may know, one of their former managers is going to jail for taking kickbacks, and the list goes on. For example, also, instead of installing modern pollution controls, they convinced the Historical Society to vacate the Snyder Hammond home. Hammond was the county's physician, the Sarah Cody of his day. It is tragic and ironic that the home of the man responsible for county health became uninhabitable because of Lehigh's decision to not install modern pollution controls, and enabled by the county and the Historical Society. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Rhoda. Our next speaker is Vigi34. Welcome, Vigi. That your handle is indicated as such.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Yeah, I was with Councilwoman Charlene Lee. She was arrested. Let me read out what it says. Like in her case, it stated that there was only a scratch from the husband's index finger, but judges extorted her to $480,000 and issued 3 years restraining order. The deputy dude lied in a police report. He lied. He made a compact disc about my statement, but he has never let me talk and did not let me call my husband and called 911. I was pressed into back and my face facing down and cannot take or breathe very well. Police on purpose called the wrong number 3 times. Her cell is 408-896-7109. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Danessa Tekmansky. Welcome, Danessa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
I wanted to thank you, Mayor Paul, for the continuation of the discussion for the funding on the Cupertino Historical Society and also the Snyder Hammond House. I did also try to get on to raise my hand earlier and found that I was also caught in the 5:15 meeting, same thing that happened to Rhoda. So there, yeah, watch for that in the future, please. I wanted to mention, just to add to that discussion, that I did meet the former tenant of the Snyder Hammond House when I was up at the cemetery, who was quite knowledgeable and enthusiastic about the maintenance of the historic home. I do know from my conversation with him that he went to one of the last remaining houses from the same 1881 period at the North Stelling 280 overpass just before it was torn down with permission. And he rescued many parts of the house and hardware to help in the Snyder Hammond home's upkeep and restoration. So, and he knew all kinds of great history about the immediate area and everything. So I was really, seemed like a really nice family. I was really disappointed to find that he and his family were basically evicted because Lehigh didn't want to install pollution controls. I guess it made the house uninhabitable. And so then, you know, our precious historic house became really nothing less than a file cabinet for Lehigh. So, and it really seems like the house has degraded since then quite a bit, which is really a shame. Every other surrounding city in our area has a loved and maintained historic house, except for Cupertino. The societies and associations in those respective cities have made their historic homes into wonderful museums or places to rent out for special events. I understand that, you know, access is more of a problem for special events, but it's helped to make them partly self-supporting. And those cities have also organized friends of groups. I know people that work at the Stockelmeyer house, or the, I'm going blank, the house out at Shoreline, Rengstorff House. And it's got a really active group of citizens that volunteer and people that give money. I think that, you know, it's kind of embarrassment that there's not even a plaque or anything in recognition of the importance of the Snyder Hammond House. Because Snyder was a pioneer of dry hay farming in this area, which was really critical for cattle and horses. So I recently have learned that Rancho San Antonio has decided to extend one of their trails that passes right past the Snyder Hammond House. So people will be seeing it. So I think now's the time to take closer examination.
Thank you, Vanessa. Your time has elapsed. Our next speaker is Charlene Sulian Lee. Welcome, Charlene.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm former Cupertino City Council candidate Charlene Sulian Lee. I have a Yale master's degree. The problem is this city is full of discrimination. We have Asian Americans, but the cops and judges are really discriminate Asian Americans. I have never had chance of jury trial. Actually, the judge, the judge and the DA Jeffrey Lawson and public defender chief Manny O'Neill conspired together to fabricate a restraining order about Huan Yang, Lala Xiao, and April Yang. On December 28, 2017, Judge Jeremy Netherlands did not issue any 3-year restraining order, but they fabricated a restraining order to Jeremy 2 months and extort me $480,000 bail. That's the totally abuse Asian American. Also on November 15, 2020, just the end of the election, I be kicked out from my house. The judge, Kerry Zipala, and Judge Nico Isager issued 3-year restraining order, say I cannot go home, cannot return home. But the police officer, Deputy Jeffrey Rio, issue a 30-day return order. He said my weight is 170 pounds, but I only have 125 pounds, and my height is 5 feet 5 inches. About my height is 5 feet 2 inches only. And he also in the police report he say Shilendra spent some time at Cupertino State Hospital, but I have never heard of this state hospital. I Google search is in St. Louis Obispo near LA. So he says my husband Chen Ping Lu told him, but I did see the video camera of Jeffrey Real batch 2406. My husband didn't say that. And in this report, say only have small scratch on the index finger. Then what's the reason or those judge discriminate me and put me into PC 1368 and keep me out for 3 years from my house, 8 Candlewood Drive, Cupertino. And also before Deborah Fair, I asked him to put my case into agenda, but she rejected. I want to know how can we put into agenda for those police issue and judge issue.
Thank you, Charlene. Your time has elapsed. Our next and final speaker, I'll go back to call-in user 3. I believe that this is a phone call-in user. You will have dialed *9 to raise your hand. In order to unmute yourself, you will need to dial *6. Not seeing call-in user 3.
So, Mr. Mayor, actually,
yes.
I did get an email from this caller, and she is attempting to unmute.
Okay.
H family is as she would like to be recognized.
Okay. And I see that unmuting is successful now. Welcome, call-in user 3. Unfortunately, now you're unmuted
Hello,
again.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Do not touch any more
Okay, thank you, Mayor and council members. And this, very appreciated you guys give time to speak. And I know this, I was listening to other people's, there's prejudice existing everywhere, and we can't change that, but we can do better. So I don't blame anybody on anything happened to the little pay structure and shading in the backyard. And the start was 2-3 years. That was years back. That time was annexed, and nobody knows. We were told as county as well, and actually the city that time back and forth a lot of times as well because it's so small. And they say they will let go, but eventually we don't want to deal with. We don't want causing anybody stress, and they also give us guidance. And when this around, there's some kind of prejudice in few people's minds. So the nightmare happened again, and we actually before that we actually begged them to give the permit, but they say they don't need it because we will follow their guidance. So when this it happened again, and we tried to work with the city actually, and put many package together, consult attorney, whatever, pay the third party, and the building department they say they even doesn't need it, but it's symbolic to try to solve the problem. And try to solve some people the prejudice, but they quoted that there's some kind of court order. But we should treat this as a separate issue, and as a lot of people listen to the other people talk, because the prejudice we can't change, including the people attacking aging and other people. But that's a separate issue. The court, whatever this is, but city, should be treated the way as they discussed before, and just to independently, and to solve this and move on. And we appreciate you guys actually work with us before, the council, the manager, and the other members, work this neutral thing. We step down just symbolically, pull a very even not the issue, and keep working with us. And again, we don't blame anybody on the prejudice or anything happened before. This is very hard to clear, and we already lost a lot of precious time. We lost the money on the legal counsel and the different packages, and also typically the children, and we lost precious time with them because the pre-structure they put their hands on twice already, and they didn't even feel like want to come to visit us. So it's very, very hard So hope you guys understand.
15 seconds.
And let's all move on. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay, thank you, calling user 3. I'll take this back to our agenda. We've been going for a couple of hours now, and so before we go to reports by council and staff, I'm going to go ahead and call a 5-minute recess. Let's come back here. I'm reading 8:17. Let's return at 8:23. Thank you.